Burnout. Woo! We are back. Yep, you know us. We are the Giants guys. Yep, you love us, you hate us, but you always tune in because we always have something that entertains you. You know me. I'm Craig Santucci, your host, the owner and operator of NYGiantsRush.com. And today we got a little bit of a twist, and we kind of promoted on Twitter for you guys. You know Michael Stewart. You know my man Jeff. But as always, a friend to the show. We are bringing back somebody who's very kind to us, Mr. Russ Salsberg. Hey, Russ.
How you guys doing tonight?
We're
Russ,
good. We're
good to have you back.
Good because football's back, and the NFL actually pulled off a full weekend of football.
Yeah, it was not I think it's quite obvious to everybody. I don't care what your favorite team is or who you root for. It was not great football. I watched, a lot of the games on Sunday, and I was there last night at MetLife Stadium.
Okay.
We'll get to that. You've just asked me. The overall picture was kind of what I expected. You had no preseason games, and not just last night, but in general from across the board. And I think most coaches will tell you, whether they want to admit it or not, I think you're going to see more mistakes. You always see more mistakes earlier in the season, but I think that would be more the case this year than ever before, just because there were no preseason games. Yeah. So I think more mistakes, when I say mistakes, turnovers, penalties, and mental lapses.
Yep, and we should jump right into it. Everybody's been waiting all. I don't know what do you want to call it, all summer, off season, right, for Giants football, right? So I'm not wasting any time. I'm going to jump right into it because I was excited, about the season. Some of the cuts, as these two gentlemen next to you will tell you, I was a little upset with some of the cuts and the roster moves. Here nor there, my first thing that sticks out is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. The New York Giants lose to the Steelers. I thought that there was some goods and some bads, but the 800-pound gorilla in the room is there's a guy on his team named Saquon Barkley, and he happens to be, if not the best running back, one of the best running backs. I've never seen Saquon Barkley be held to a handful of yards on 15 carries. So Russ and Michael, Jeff, all you guys jump in if you want. Is this basically what we're looking at preseason? Is this their preseason, and we're going to see that?
I'll tell you what. I was sitting there last night in the press box watching the whole thing, and
they let you in.
Yeah. That's a whole other story. That's the most surreal experience ever. There's one thing about going into. I'll digress for 1 second. There's one thing about going into, like you're watching maybe the NBA or the NHL. There's one thing about an empty arena that holds 15 to 20,000. Even a baseball stadium that as big as they are, but they're not getting 70, 80,000 people.
No.
You go to Giant Stadium, MetLife Stadium for a game, you're number one, from the moment you leave the house, you're expecting a traffic jam. Then you're just getting in the parking lot and the tailgating. And it's crazy. It's surreal. But having said that, I was, excuse me, bummed out. And here's my attitude. Great running back, a super talent. And I was hearing things, well, but Russ, they were loading up. I would talk to guys going to the bathroom, getting a drink.
Sure.
Yeah, but Russ, they're loading up on the running game. They're loading up. Excuse me, guys. And I go, you know what? For a game, 15 carries, 6 yards, 8 of those carries produced either no yards or negative yards. A running back with that kind of talent has to be able to make a play on his own. It was a bad game, and to me, there are no excuses, none whatsoever. I mean, yeah, The run blocking wasn't up to par last night. We know that. On the other side, the pass blocking in particular early on was very good. I was impressed with that. That's a very, very stout defense. Very stout defense. But I don't know if you chalk it up to preseason or what. It was, for lack of a better term, it was a lousy performance by Saquon. I think he would be the first one to tell you that.
Jeff.
It was their first live action together preseason. More than any other year, having the same people in place, the same starters as the previous year, I think it's a bigger advantage this year than any other year due to no offseason and everything like that. Preseason would have been more valuable this year with all the talent that we had to assess.
Without question, and it was a young team.
Yeah.
But it is a young team. But having said that, I'm sorry. If somebody would have told you he was going to have 15 carries and 6 yards, and it was all the negative. I was sitting there in the press box last night watching you recover a fumble early on, deep in their territory, with your nose on the goal line. You got Saquon Barkley. This is cake. And as soon as they had to settle for a field goal, I said, nah, it didn't sit well with me. So,
Michael, I think you're right on.
It's one game. You got to move forward. You can't dwell on it. But if you're asking me what I thought, I was disappointed. You got to be better than that.
Yeah, I don't play fantasy football, but I'm sure if you play fantasy football, you heard a lot of people's fantasy football weekend. Michael Stewart, do you feel the same way that there's a lot that rests on Saquon, or because as much as I was bummed about the abomination that you call run blocking, I thought Garrett could have done Barkley a favor and maybe done a sweep toss, a jet toss, just to kind of get him out into space. We kept pounding the rock up the middle and nothing was happening. Are you putting this more on the line, Barkley, or maybe even Garrett a little bit for not trying to get the ball to him into some space?
Well, I'm not going to question Garrett's offensive game plan. He can't show you everything. He can't show you his whole hand in one game. I agree with Ross with Barkley. He did have a bad game, and he probably would have made it. But, he played bad last year against the Jets. I think he did even worse that game. I think the Jets held him for less yards, if I'm not mistaken, when they played the Jets. But they got to figure something out with that offensive line. I really thought the offensive line would struggle against the pass more than the run.
Well, I got to tell you on that. I happen to. I'm not necessarily. Well, I would agree that I would expect that, and we didn't get that last night. We got some very good pass protection, and with the quarterback, young quarterback. Especially
when you got T.J. Watt breathing down your neck.
No. I thought. Listen, it's not just T.J. Watt. They are very, very good, and I thought the pass protection was excellent. And I gotta tell you, Craig, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not putting this one on Garrett. And listen, we have seen this early on in Saquon's career, and I don't want to make this anti-Saquon. I love it, Saquon. He's one of the best, most outstanding running backs in the league. But, sometimes, if you remember early in his first year, there was a little too much, if you will, and jitterbugging behind the line. I
remember.
Instead of just looking for the hole, instead of exploding to it, maybe he tried to do a little too much. But, he was pushed outside. Even when he tried to go outside, it was just a bad game. Chalk it up as a bad game. I will tell you this. I thought, since you're talking about the offensive line, I thought in his first game, Andrew Thomas had a pretty good game. There were things that I saw that I liked. And, look, guys, if we could take back the interception late in the game, I thought I can't begin to tell you how many people told me today, were called up and asked me, wow, Russ, man, if anybody thinks Daniel Jones is not going to be a frontline quarterback, Giants, Gettleman knew what he was doing drafting that guy. He can throw the ball. He's athletic. It was a screw up. I looked at it. I says, "Wait a minute! Did he just get intercepted?" I'm thinking just throwing the ball away. It was a screw up.
I actually didn't even, as much as it upset me because that drive was just tremendous.
Oh my God!
It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it was like if you wanted anything to happen to the New York Giants is to have an 80-yard drive, right? So while I was mad that they didn't finish, right? I thought Jones had a great day. Like, I think I'm more, and not to digress, but like I kept waiting for Saquon to drop a shoulder and blow through somebody, and he just doesn't play like that.
It was, but I'm telling Greg, it was just a bad game, and that's what we chalk it up with as a bad game. That's why, when you ask about Garrett, let me tell you what. Do you have any problem on that 87-yard drive at
19 plays?
No.
I mean, it was just one of those things. The results sucked, but to me, if I was a Giant fan, it starts
Which you are, by the way. Which you are.
Pardon me? Yes, but it starts. I'm speaking for Giant fans. If you're a Giant fan out there, it starts with the quarterback, and you got yourselves a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I was I mean, it almost made me ask, and I didn't write this down on any notes or anything. But I'm going to throw it out to you guys. Jeff, I know you've talked about this before. Do we miss Tate? I don't know. Like, I started asking myself, like, so listen, I'm sure Golden Tate's a really nice cat. He seems like a good guy. Seems like he made a mistake last year with whatever he was doing to get suspended, the PEDs or whatever. Here nor there. It was last year. I just now looking at like what Shepard did, making a ton of really hard catches. Slayton, smooth as silk. Again, is Tate even necessary?
I mean,
I think. Listen, you can't have enough talent. So I mean, I certainly wouldn't dismiss the being in a fortunate position to have a Golden Tate on your team. I mean, that old saying, you can't have too much talent. You can't have too much talent. I will say this about Slayton. When people like to criticize drafting this guy or drafting that guy, well, you know what? They drafted Daniel Jones with the 6th pick, and everybody, for lack of a better term, got their balls in an uproar. Like, oh, my God, how did I pick this guy number 6? What was Slayton, a 5th-round draft pick? Do I remember?
Yeah. Everybody went home and went out to dinner, Dame, too, and they wound up pulling him out in the 5th round. Like, I don't know why he fell, but everybody else had given up on the draft that day, and they were like, I got some guy Slayton in the 5th round.
To me, he's going to be their go-to guy. I mean, the guy that shook me up last night, and again, it's the first game, but, listen, Saquon had a lousy game, and so did Ingram.
Oh, we could do I don't even want to go there yet because Jeff, if Tate's there yesterday, is the outcome any different?
I don't think it would have moved the needle all that much just because their pass rush. Jones wasn't comfortable. I think Jones played so well for having Dupree over here, Watt over here.
Yeah.
I mean, Dupree, that guy looks like an absolute stud. He was everywhere. His presence was felt constantly, and you can't rest on Watt. That defense is great. So we knew it was going to be a challenge coming out. I don't think Tate Tate would have been an upgrade over Board out there, but we said it last year. Tate was that security blanket. He made a lot of 3rd and long catches for Daniel Jones over the middle, and he's a pro's pro. He would have been an upgrade out there for us. I don't think it would have moved the needle all that much. Our problem was the offensive line. It wasn't the wide receivers.
Michael, you feel the same way?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Tate's a good player, but he wouldn't have made the difference. They still would have lost yesterday.
They didn't lose for lack of receiving. I mean, pass catching. I mean, that was not the reason. And you know what? I got to tell you, and man, I don't want to make this a beatdown on Saquon. If Saquon's running the ball, they might win the game. So you can talk about your offensive line and this and that. Yeah, the offensive line. Listen.
So let me bring this point up to you then, Russ, because you might remember this. I know, Jeff, you and I have talked about it before. in his rookie year, right? You referred to it a second ago about how he was a little bit of tiptoeing around that first year. And then the middle of the season, they brought in, I think his last name was Brown. You guys remember? I think he played for the Rams, and they brought him in.
Yeah.
So when they brought Brown in, he was what they would call a road grader. Like he was just a monster of a man and was a great run blocker. And if you remember, and maybe this is just how I'm wound. I remember some of the silly stuff. But in that moment, as soon as Brown came in, Barkley took off because, he was pushing the pile enough for Saquon to pause and blow through a hole. Where yesterday you didn't have that road grader, and Saquon doesn't dip shoulders. He kind of starts dancing all over it. As Russ said, it kind of reminded me as those first 4 games of 2018.
Well, remember something. You're talking about Brown, who was a seasoned veteran. You're talking about a young offensive line, a first game of the season without any preseason games. Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to make excuses, but you got to be realistic about it. You had Andrew Thomas in there, who had a pretty good game. Nick Gates is playing at center.
Zeitler missed every block, I think, in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of – it was the first one out of the gate. I mean, and what surprised me is that I thought you would have more problems on pass protection, and we didn't have problems. Yeah, he got hit a couple of times and sacked, but, I mean, it's football. It's the NFL. That's going to happen.
Let's say this. For that stout Steelers defense, if I'm not mistaken, and Michael Stewart, correct me because you're always on the stats. He got sacked 3 times, right?
Yes.
I mean, to have Bud Dupree and T.J. Watt and all that stout defensive linemen that the Steelers have, to go and get sacked 3 times, that's one, good awareness on Jones getting rid of the ball and getting the ball out of his hand. And as Russ alluded to, not a bad job in the pass blocking. They're going to have to work on the run blocking. Like I said, I was like looking at Zeitler missing blocks all over the place. So there's Colombo's got his work cut out for him to get those boys moving.
Quick question. The biggest thing, and I'm sure we'll touch on it, they lost that game yesterday in the red zone. Plain and simple.
Oh, without question.
Plain and simple, right? Yeah. Pittsburgh got 23 points in the red zone. Giants got 13 points total.
That's
so
a difference.
I mean, listen, the die was cast early on. You recover a fumble.
That's a gift. It's a touchdown.
That's a gift. I mean, that's a gift. That was like, here, go ahead, jump on it. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, that can't happen when you have a running back like Saquon Barkley.
First thing I thought of was our head coach is a special teams coach. Yeah, baby.
I mean, with everything that was stacked against the Giants going into that game, with how good the Steelers' defense is, the experienced quarterback, their head coach has been there forever, had a ton of success. I mean, we were 3 plays away, right? And I know a lot of people are tired of hearing that story because that's been our story for the last 8 years, is we were this close. But we really were right there. We're not as far as you think.
Jeff, I agree with you, number one, on that. And number two, Craig, I'm sorry. I mean, I didn't see anything wrong with a game plan last night. I didn't see anything wrong. I think Joe Judge is the right guy for the job. Yeah. I like demeanor. I've watched him in camp. It was a first game for a young team against a very stout defense. And what you just said, they were 3 plays away. I mean, if they take that red zone and they go in, are you kidding me? They win the game.
Yeah. I will tell you, I had fun. It wasn't like it was like a big bitch fest. I mean, we were having, if you think about it, like Jones is making throws, Slayton's making catches. I think Shepard caught everything thrown at him. Cade Smith had a couple catches. You hit Saquon for that big rip down the side. Like the game was, from an offensive standpoint, because we're kind of starting with the offense, it was fun. Okay. He threw that pick and, a couple other things that didn't go perfect, but it was fun. Maybe because we all miss football, but it was fun.
Yeah. You mentioned Cade Smith, and believe me, I'm not quitting on Evan Ingram by any means. He had a bad game, but Cade Smith, I like what I got to see last year. I like
that's my guy.
He's a player.
I saw an interview it's probably about a year ago when Witten was in the booth before he unretired. And he was I think Cade Smith had just won some type of receiving award, and Witten was saying that the team that drafts him, Smith was still a senior in college. He was saying that the team that finds him, if he gets in the right system, that kid can play. And you alluded to it. Is he a top 5 tight end? No. But for the right kind of smash mouth team, that Cade Smith can actually be a starting tight end in the NFL. And I believe him. I really do like what he brings to the table.
He's very, very good. I mean, listen, they wanted him out of college. The way it worked out, they couldn't get him. So when they had a chance to get him back last year, they jumped at it. They thought they jackpot. So
which brings me to his counterpart, and I can appreciate you being a patient man. I find Evan Ingram an anomaly. I can't put my finger quite on it, and I don't want to disparage him because I'm sure he's a great guy. He's got all the physical tools on the planet. I mean, like, what else could you ask for this guy? The only thing that kind of rubs me wrong is that when the lights are on, he kind of shrinks a little bit. And I don't know if maybe, you said, yes, preseason, working out some kinks, but this isn't the first time. He's injured a lot. And then last night, I mean, he just couldn't get it going at all. I kind of wonder if that messes with his psyche because I don't know how strong mentally he is because he's never on the field.
Well, I don't – his injuries aren't excuse injuries. Some guys, this hurts, that hurts. His injuries have been unfortunate breaks, tears. I mean, so I'm not making excuses for him, but I don't think there's anything wrong with his psyche. I think his frustration has been his ability to stay healthy. I think last night, listen, he had a lousy game last night, just like Saquon had a lousy game last night.
Let's make a deal then. Let's make a deal. He doesn't have to pass block. He just doesn't have to. I mean, there are 2 other tight ends on this team that can pass block. Just stop trying to make the guy pass block.
I mean, how many coaching staffs have tried to make him a blocker, and they just can't?
And listen, and it's not a knock on him. It's not his thing. He's not a grinder. As he's closer to a wide receiver than a tight end. Why does everybody want to make him pass block?
It's like in basketball, they call you a tweener. You're in between a forward and a guard, or a forward and a center. He's a tweener. But yeah, you're right. To me, he when I view him, when we talk about our wideouts, I view him as another wideout. That's
sure. And as Jeff just alluded to, Jeff, right? We're on 3 staffs later, and we're still trying to make him a blocking tight end.
These are professional coaches that they do this with their every waking moment, and they can't make him a blocker.
Everybody thinks they can make him better. Everyone.
Yeah, it's almost like, okay, guys, let's concentrate on him getting 1,000 yards receiving and stop worrying if he can block.
Right. Just let him be an asset. Let him play to his strengths. He's not gonna. I mean, it's great when you see a linebacker trying to chase him, trying to stay up with him. Then you're like, okay, we can use this guy. So do that with him. I'm with you. Use him for.
I like to see Ingram being a slot and go in motion a lot more. That's what I like to see him do.
Kittle does it all the time. Yeah. Because I can't. It hurts me to watch him try to pass block. I'm like, put a little effort into it. What are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll bounce back.
He's going to have some big games. He's going to have big games. He's going to score at least a handful of touchdowns this year. I hope he stays healthy. I still hope it works out. But I mean, if this is his contract year, you got to wonder if the experiment is over after this year, or if they're going to keep trying to force this thing. I mean, you might want to look at him as a trade asset to a team that is a piece away or something like that. But
I understand what you're saying. They didn't keep him for this year to trade him. They kept him because they want him to produce. They love the kid. It's a matter of producing. Look, it's a business. That's what it is. It's a business. And it's up to him to do 2 things: produce and at the same time stay healthy. Whether it's fault or not, if you can't get on the field, they're not going to pay you. So it's a combination, and call it a vicious cycle, whatever it is. That's a business of professional sports.
That's one good thing about last night is we got out of the game pretty healthy, right?
That's good.
hear anything really.
Wait a minute. We went into the game with 2 scratches, though. Right?
I know, but Golden Tate. Who else didn't see well?
Crowder
Yeah.
and Brunson.
Well, I mean, I just feel like the way we played, we competed hard. And I think the way we showed a lot of fight, and I love our coaching staff. I'm with Russ on that. I think Joe Judge is the guy. I just think this team has got to feel real good going to Chicago with how they battled against Pittsburgh. Like Chicago.
No, I'm sorry, Jeff. I think you're going to see listen, the Chicago's are not the Pittsburghs. You're going to see a different,
both sides of the ball. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a different situation. I would think, look, you're not going to go. Let's take last night's game. Do you expect to see the same kind of performance this coming week from Saquon? No. So, you turn that performance around, you would have had a win last night.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You turn that performance around, you would have had a win last night.
Yeah, if he runs like Barry Sanders, you win by 14. Right? Well, let's talk about the most unexpected thing last night. The defense looked really good.
Yeah.
Like there's not a person on the planet that expected that. I mean, you were seeing, and I was Russ, I was bitching earlier in the week about actually, I was probably bitching right up to game time that Joe Judge cuts Connolly and then scratches the other 2 linebackers and had to take Carter Coughlin, which is basically an outside linebacker. And in pre-game, he was having him take inside reps. So I was kind of disappointed that while we got rid of the linebacker that we thought was going to play inside linebacker, and now we have an outside linebacker taking reps because we're short. It kind of worked out, right? Because we stayed healthy, and Blake Martinez is the real deal. For all those people out there he's this, he's that, he's this, that, and that. The guy can ball. I mean, he came here to do one thing, stop the run.
Hey, listen, I love what I got from him last night. I thought Leonard Williams was very he was all over the field last night, rushing the passer, stopping the run. He did a hell of a job. I thought Lorenzo Carter had a very good game. I mean, Dexter Lawrence, they were good. Bradbury was good. There was a lot on defense that you liked. Well, yeah, did they get beat on plays in the second half? Yeah, well, that's the NFL. That's that guy Roethlisberger, he can play a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. That story that when they showed that story about him coming back from that injury did not look pleasant at all.
He's that was a pretty formidable opponent for a young team. They were not embarrassed. If they're embarrassed by anything, they're embarrassed, a bad mistake with an interception. Saquon, trust me, Saquon will put up a brave front. He'll always say the right thing. I guarantee you, he went home pissed off.
Oh yeah.
He went home pissed off. He can't wait. I guarantee you to get out on the field next Sunday against the Bears because that taste is gonna linger with him the entire week.
He might run through somebody in Chicago.
You're right.
Yeah, we could use a little bit of that. You mentioned Leonard Williams. I mean, you're always around the team. What's he like?
Nice guy, friendly. Big man.
Yeah.
Good guy. I mean, quite frankly, they don't have bad guys on the team. They got a bunch of good guys. I mean, Sexy Dexter Lawrence is a guy. Dalvin Tomlinson's a terrific guy. Dalvin Tomlinson could have gone he turned down Harvard to play for Alabama.
Yeah, smart kid.
Yeah, he's a very smart kid, very bright kid, good, and a real leader.
I only asked about Leonard Williams because he's been at the kind of the forefront of everybody's, I don't know what the word would be. Everybody's been kind of firing missiles at him all off season about the contract and signing it. I just kind of wonder what kind of guy he was because he's very quiet. He doesn't say a whole lot, but he's taken a lot of flack in the off season, and and you know what? He showed up. He had a great game.
Well, yeah, but when you say he doesn't say a whole lot, I mean, who's he not saying a whole lot
well, to the media, I guess.
Well, there you go. So who cares?
Yeah.
I'm a member of it, but who cares? Does he talk with his teammates? Is he a leader there? Does he get the job done? I mean, from the moment he came into the locker room, everybody liked him. I'll tell you what, for a guy who was acquired during the season, especially in football, it's not like in other sports. He came into a unit and was part of that group right away. So I don't have any problem with him. I don't think the contract or lack thereof affected him or got into his head or anything like that. I don't think he's let it bother him. And he displayed that last night. So really.
Because it sounds like he kind of looks like he handled it like a pro and very seamless. And like you mentioned, he went from, one side of the locker room to the other, and he picked up and, he didn't skip a beat. I thought he had a great game on top of it, kind of proving like, hey, I can play this game and I fit in with these guys. I mean, that's a pretty good front. And just to think that B.J. Hill is even like behind those guys, the defensive line's pretty stout.
Yeah, I think it's a good, like I say, I wasn't losing sleep over the game last night. You know what? I was more pissed off because, kind of agreeing with Jeff. They were like, you take 2 or 3 plays and they win the game. So it was frustrating in that they could have, should have, but they didn't win.
You just said, Russ, you said you agree with Jeff. He's going to cut this piece of tape up and he's going to play it. He's going to play it 1,000 times. It's going to be like Russ Salsberg agrees with Jeff Pilgrim. He's going to play that now for like the next 3 months.
Well, when he's right, he's right.
No, that's two.
Well,
that's
listen,
two.
Russ is a smart guy, and I trust his opinion. So if he says I'm right, then.
Oh boy. Michael Stewart, being a Carolina guy, you had Bradbury in your backyard. What did you think of his game last night?
He played well. He did. And just like with the rest of the guys said, he had a couple of mishaps in the second half. But a lot of guys did. That could be like a missed assignment or, again, you're playing against elite NFL wide receivers. So it's going to happen. You can't stop every play. But I thought he played well.
Yeah, especially, like I said, to me last night was actually preseason game number 1.
Yeah.
I know it wasn't, but that's kind of what it really is realistically, right?
And one of those plays that Russ and I are talking about that could have gone our way was the fumble that Bradbury caused. He stripped Snell. Juju's foot was out of bounds when he recovered it.
Great strip.
But we had 4 Giants right there.
That happened to piss me off. No, because you want to know what? That's where you got to be on your toes. Bradbury makes the strip. They're going to get the ball back. You got 4 Giants around. That's where you got to – if there was a defensive flaw last night, that's where somebody's got to get that ball.
That was right after the red zone interception, and we were still only down 6 points.
Yeah.
We would have got the ball right back around midfield somewhere, and we would have been back in business. So
yeah, the sense of urgency just didn't seem to be there on that play.
No, I mean, I'm telling you, give me 3 plays back. Give me, the
interception.
The interception, that play, and early on when you're first and goal at the goal line and you can't get in.
Those are the 3 things.
Points.
Different ball game. Completely different game.
Yeah, I get greedy, right away because like when you were talking about the offense of that, like I just get greedy because right away I think of Garrett and I think of Romo and all those crazy stuff that they used to do, like pitch backs and pitch outs and stuff like that. So I was kind of hoping maybe hey, throw this ball out into space and get Saquon wide, let him roll into the corner of the end zone, because that. Like you said, we needed to score in their end zone. I'm sure they're going to be working on it every day this week.
Well, you know what, Craig? It's good to see that you're a guy who doesn't let things go. You hold on to it till it go.
I wear my heart on my sleeve.
Craig will be 75 years old, and he'll still be pissed that the Giants cut Connolly. I promise.
Yeah, I'm not letting that go. Just so you know,
Backman.
I'm very upset about the Connolly cut.
Well, I would tell you this, or I not tell you. I'll say this about the Connolly cut. I was upset too.
Yeah.
I think that had to be based upon and none of us know this, that had to be based upon how he's come back from the injury, how they think it could affect him in the future. And some of those decisions are a flip of a coin. It's a crapshoot. Okay, do we invest in a guy? Do we not? Is that injury going to be a problem in the future? Does it affect his speed? It's just unfortunate. I was really sorry to see him go, but I'm sure it was based on that because they love the kid.
Yeah. I've been struggling with it all week, and then when they scratched Crowder and Brunson, and I heard the report, I think Ralph. I mean, Ralph. I think Ralph reported that Carter Coughlin was getting snaps on inside linebacker. I'm like, come on, Judge, what are you doing? So, but yes, I got to turn a new leaf and I got to let some things go. It's very true. It's the Italian in me, I guess. Overall, though, defense. You know what was interesting? Guys like like Love and Fackrell. Like we had a couple guys that were really quiet. Just quiet. And then some guys, I think Russ alluded to, Dexter Lawrence and
Martinez looked great.
Martinez. Like some of these guys really. Carter stepped up. Like you didn't really hear anything from Fackrell or Love. Like they were really quiet. So it was kind of like feast or famine, but nothing to complain about because that means they're just going to get better.
There was not. Listen, they were going to get Roethlisberger was going to complete some passes. So I didn't. I thought the defense. There was nobody glaring like, oh my God, this guy's bad or that guy's bad or he had an awful game. I didn't see that from the defense. I thought the defense had a pretty solid game.
Yeah, Golden looked good too.
Even that first touchdown pass that Ben threw to Juju, if you notice, when Ben threw that, I don't know if Juju even started running towards the end line yet. He threw that 15 yards away from the defense, and Juju got there. Like, that's an experienced throw that you're not going to stop on defense. Like, I don't fault them for that.
And Craig, I'm glad you mentioned Marcus because I would be remiss if I didn't. He brings it all the time. He brings 150 miles an hour, 150% all the time.
Yeah,
he's one of those guys who just loves playing football.
Yeah, and the reason that's kind of the reason why I brought it up. I'm a big fan of outside linebackers and defensive ends that complete the play, finish the play. Where you come back for a tackle, or like Dexter Lawrence made this great tackle last night. I can't quite remember, maybe third quarter, where he was one step from open field, and Lawrence missed him the first time and trailed him from behind and made a tackle and slid up on him and made a tackle. Like I always liked the extra effort. It was always something about that I was taught as a kid. What I did through high school all the way through college was second effort, right? And one thing I appreciate about Golden is, like, if he doesn't get the sack, he doesn't stop running. We used to have an outside linebacker, Vernon, who used to do something like that. Golden just happens to have that, as you mentioned, like, he loves football. He's like, I may not get the sack, I'm going to make this tackle. So I really appreciate the fact that, he's not going to give up. And maybe it's a Judge thing, but I think he did it last year too.
Well, no. I think he did it last year. He just likes to play. He just likes to play. I mean, he's another guy. Contract he didn't get signed and didn't get a big deal. Didn't affect him whatsoever. His demeanor, his commitment. He's a baller.
Michael, you mentioned Carter. You liked what Carter did last night?
I liked the way he played. Yeah, he looked good off the edge. When he came in, he looked really good.
Didn't he look a lot different than he did last year? Like last year, he kind of would disappear in stretches.
Well, yeah, last year. I'm looking at now. I like what I saw with Carter. I don't think he'll get those 11.5 sacks that Mike projected, but he's going to have I think he's going to have a good year.
Russ, we have one of the other younger guys that joins us here on the Giants guys. We each had a prediction at the beginning of the year to have a little fun. And we call him Mikey Fresh, and he said that he was guaranteeing Carter would have an 11.5 sacks. So we've been monitoring every snap that Carter gets because we were like, he had 4 sacks last year. Like how's he gonna have and he swears by it. And I will say that you know what? After watching him play last night, he could do it because he looked like I thought he looked like a very different player.
I can see
I,
seven.
I agree. I thought last year was disappointing. I think it was disappointing to him for whatever reason. Listen, last year was disappointing, period. So you go ahead. I mean, he can play. He's one of the guys that I expected to have a big bounce back year. So,
well, let's say everything's been a disappointment since 2012. So, you know. But yeah, Carter looked good.
I think from a high level, the effort that we played with yesterday and the coaching staff that we've got, I feel more optimistic. I know we lost and all the fans are tired of losing, but I feel significantly better this year with this coaching staff, the effort and the schemes and everything going into this team than I have felt about Ben McAdoo. Even the flash in the pan 2016 season, was never in love with Ben McAdoo. And then the Pat Shurmur project, not necessarily all his fault, but I love Joe Judge. I hope he's the guy for 2 decades here with us. Like, I love everything that this guy brings. I love the effort last night, and I think we're going to win a lot of games this year that we're not supposed to because of that.
I would agree. Listen, look, this is a season we're going to look back on no matter what happens. I mean, between the pandemic and everything else going on and no fans, it's bizarre. I mean, it's bizarre, surreal. It's crazy. And this is a young team. I mean, think about it. You're a 38-year-old coach. You get this dream. You know what? He was on our preseason show, and one of my questions to him was, you get this dream job, and then you get this nightmare called a pandemic, and like, what are you saying to yourself? And, you know, I mean, he doesn't make excuses, but you think about that. And it's not just a new job and your first one as a head coach, but you're doing it in the biggest market in the world, and you're doing it with a young team.
The youngest team.
That is tremendous in transition. So I look, guys, I'm not waving big blue pom-poms. I just think, from what I got to see last night, there was, you know, and again, nobody likes the moral victories, okay? So I'm not pulling that. I just think if I'm going to assess what I watched, I'm going to assess that there was far more positives than negatives.
Oh, yeah, hands down.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
and I want to remind everybody that, so you're listening to the Giants, guys. This will be up on YouTube. We're going to fire out, everybody when it's finally produced and ready to go. Russ, what's going on with the show? Are you still doing the Big Blue Live show? What's going on with that?
Actually, this year we won't be doing it, or at least I won't be doing it, simply because I'll be back next year, simply because the show's different this year. First of all, it's not going to be a live streaming video. It's just going to be, audio. It's because of COVID-19.
Oh, yeah.
We can't get into the facility.
Yeah, sure.
So it's a different thing. But, I mean, for people who want to watch me, you can watch every time the Giants are on Fox 5 on Fox. You can watch my preseason show, my pregame show, Giants kickoff on Fox 5 on the Saturday night before. Usually it's about 5:30. You have to check your listings. Okay. And you can listen to my Get a Load of This podcast, which actually just came out this evening, my latest one. You can hear that on the just go on to WABCradio.com, WABCradio.com, and click onto the podcast. Get a Load of This is the name of my podcast, and you get that.
Nice. Now, I have a silly question to ask. When they shut the show down, because I used to, tune in the show because I could get it on my phone when I'm driving or on the way to the stadium or whatever. I could always have access to the show. Do they just tell you, hey, we're shutting the show down, but we're going to resume next year? Like, is it already penciled in that soon as next season starts, they do it?
It's not completely shut down. It's how should I say it? It's been altered than the way it was done last year. You're still going to have guys. You're still going to have guys like Paul Dottino and some people doing it. I'm just not going to be doing it this year. They're going to be doing the audio, and they're doing it from their homes and just logistics and the way it's worked out different for me.
Well, Russ, that frees you up to do the Giants guys with us once in a while. So that's pretty good.
Oh, my pleasure, guys.
Exactly. All right, I got one more topic that I want to talk about because I know last week we took a lot of time going over roster. We got a couple guys that are on the show and write for me on the website that are just roster aficionados. They love diving into depth charts and who makes it and why. I wanted to kind of get and Michael Stewart definitely chime in here because you know a lot about the player. Valentine. He's starting at that right corner. Like, I didn't think he had a bad game, but in general, like, is that the plan? Is he going to be locked in on that right corner? Is Logan Ryan potentially going to play some corner? Like, you're closer to the team than anybody. What's kind of the progress?
Well, you got to remember something. None of us. I was talking to Paul Schwartz from the New York Post yesterday. None of us are as close to the team as we were in the past. I mean, I'll give you an example. I'm going to walk into the locker room next year, and there's going to be 20 new guys from this year that I don't have a relationship with.
Yeah,
because everything we're doing is Zoom. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if you about Valentine, is that the plan? Well, the plan is to keep excelling and to do well. If he's going to do well, he's going to hold on to the job. And if he's not going to do well, he's not going to hold on to the job. Ditto for everybody else.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to I'm not sloughing it off, but, Bill Parcells always used to say this: best guys play. Contracts aside, when it comes time to it, you get your money, but best guys play.
It's his job to lose.
Yeah. Certainly today it is.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, did you like the way he played? What did you think of what he did?
He got exposed a little bit. I think he's got to get better. There are several guys that you could tell need to get better. I know you brought up Darnay Holmes to me on Twitter because I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah,
he
can ball. He's just young, but he can ball.
He got to start.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a hot take that he was going to start by week 4, and it's week 1, and he was starting. So I think he impressed a lot of people in camp. I think he's going to be a stud for us. He was another steal in the draft. That's another point for Dave Gettleman.
Another Gettleman, yep.
Yep. So I love him. I think this team just needs a little bit of time. I think we got a rough start out of the gate with Pittsburgh, Chicago, and San Fran, some tough teams we're going up against. But I think this team is going to make huge progress this year. I mean, by the end of the year, I think this defense is going to be rock solid. I think they're going to be way better than people think.
You might even think that from the team you see today will be dramatically different than the team you see in Week 16.
Absolutely.
Probably, yeah.
Oh, I would think it's going to be of course, barring injuries and that stuff. But I think if guys stay healthy, you're going to see a vastly improved team from last. And like I said, here, Craig, I'm going to say it again. I concur with Jeff.
No!
Give me 3 plays back, and you'd have a giant.
He's so smart.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Don't get it happen. So they didn't make it happen.
To win games.
Yeah. And now that Russ has said it like 4 times, never going to live it down. Jeff's never going to let us forget that Russ agreed with him like 6 times.
Russ, I'll tag you in the tweet because he's absolutely right. I'm 100%.
Oh, yeah. I knew it was going to happen. The minute it came out of Russ's mouth, Russ is like, I concur with Jeff. I'm like, oh, that's not good.
Well,
I'm keeping notes.
I wanted to say that on purpose, just because I knew it would make you nuts.
Well, listen, anything that, what are you seeing again? I mean, not to, we're still, it's Tuesday, right? Or, it's 4 days away. What's the Bears look like?
Listen what this guy's asking me. What do the Bears look like?
I meant from like the standpoint, like, is that a better matchup? Like, because it's not the Steelers.
Craig, you heard me say that earlier. You're going to see, I mean, the Bears are not the Steelers, in particular up front or particular at quarterback. I mean, any which way you want to look at it.
Trubisky.
So I got to see an improved effort just based on, again, we're just going to go over it based on Saquon. You're not going to see that again.
Nope.
And if God forbid you do, then we're all going to be scratching our heads.
Yeah, and as I think Michael said or Jeff said, you got out of that game pretty healthy. So that's the win. If you want to know what the win is, you played, you competed, you could have won, and you got out healthy.
Yeah, that's it.
For a young team, obviously you want the W, but for a young team to go out there, compete, stay healthy, you got to feel good about where this team is going. This year is about progress. It's about competing. We're going in the right direction. I don't think you can doubt that anymore.
We all know how rough the Giants Twitterverse can be, and I will tell you, everybody's on the same page. I think like 80% of the people are very happy with the output last night. So I don't think anybody's complaining. And I think, as like Russ just said, like the Bears aren't the Steelers. You could be 1-1, and that also puts a lot of energy back in the team too.
Hell yeah.
Listen, it's if there's a bright spot to this past weekend, and I'm not one of those guys that misery loves company, but since everybody, no matter whether a young team or not, you're always looking at the standings. Cowboys lost and the Eagles lost. So you know what? If you're doing that kind of counting after week 1, it wasn't so bad.
That's another positive. You're right.
The 41-yard touchdown to Slayton put the biggest smile on my face I've had in a long time, man.
That throw was gorgeous.
Split the two safeties. I was happy camper.
Yeah, no, Daniel's a player and Slayton's a player. And I think you're going to see that combination for a lot of years to come.
Oh, yeah.
That was a 50-yard throw. That ball was zipped, too. That was not a bomb or a Hail Mary. That thing was zipped right to his hands. That was beautiful.
It's not just his ability to pass the ball. He's a big, strong kid who's athletic. He can run. I mean, he's got – it's all there for him. It's all there for him.
Yeah, I think pretty much we've all underestimated Daniel Jones.
The whole world did.
Yeah, well, I mean, they underestimated because they didn't know anything about him.
Yeah.
That's – hey, look, let me tell you something. You guys are Giants fans. Phil Simms lost more games in college than he won. I think he won 2 games his senior year. Okay? Yeah. I mean, throw it out the window. I mean, when they were comparing Haskins' numbers to Daniel Jones' numbers, one's playing at Ohio State, the other one's playing,
Duke.
Really, think about it.
Yeah.
They knew what they were doing when they drafted Daniel Jones.
By the way, which is absolutely amazing because Russ, I'm a Gettleman fan. I like what Dave does. I understand the rap that, he's older or,
that's crap. That's bull crap.
Exactly. Like I these guys will tell you, I'm always in Gettleman's camp. I like what Gettleman's done, and the Jones Slayton thing is just something that always is amazing because even if you were a Duke fan, you didn't like Daniel Jones. Like, it's just like, it's amazing sometimes what these guys know, and what they see.
Let me ask you this. And I'm going to give credit to Pat Shermer for saying this. And Pat Shermer said this to me, and he's right. He said this to me last year.
Okay.
He said, in a couple of years, you're going to take your quarterback combination and your running back combination, and none of them are going to be better than Jones and Saquon Barkley. Okay? So everybody was killing Gettleman because he didn't draft Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
You remember?
Yep.
Everybody was killing him. They're not killing him about that today, are they?
No, they forgive him all of a sudden for that one.
Yeah, all of a sudden that memory, the memory lapse is right there. Stop.
Yeah, it's impressive. Well, Russ, how do I get you back on? A couple weeks.
Just get in touch with me. Let me know.
And give him a phone call. Okay,
yeah,
Craig.
Or like send me an email. Instead, he sends me an email like an hour before. Hey, Russ, how you doing? Okay, here's the thing. That's great. Mazel tov. Have a nice day.
I'll fall on the sword. I will fall on the sword. No,
I like talking with you guys anytime. Give me a let me know, and you can always get me.
And let me know what you're doing. We're gonna promote your stuff. We're gonna put it into the show. We're gonna promote it once we produce up the show. And you're listening to the Giants, guys. This will be produced up. You'll be able to get it on YouTube. You'll be able to get it on the site. It's a pleasure having Russ. And this is not our normal layout, so we'll be back at a full boat with Spiro and Mikey Fresh next week after the Bears game. And then San Francisco's after that?
Yep.
Maybe we can get Russ back after San Francisco, because that'll be 3 weeks in. We can kind of get a little bit of taste of what that 3-game swatch looks like.
Sounds good. Anytime, buddy. Just let me know.
All right, you're listening to the Giants, guys. Tune in soon.
Nice talking to you.
Thank you, Russ.
Thank you, guys. Always a pleasure.
Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Special thanks to Russ Salsberg for joining the Giants guys this week. You can get his podcast, Get a Load of This, over at 77 WABC Radio, or you can go to russsalzberg.com for more info. Make sure you follow all the Giants guys on Twitter.